Hey, welcome back to the Backyard Professor Chess videos on this Memorial Day 2019. Let's do a significant game of Bobby Fischer that now we're getting to names that we can recognize, at least for we Americans. We're a little slow on the uptake sometimes, but we'll get there. He is playing Arthur Bisguier. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. B-I-S-G-U-I-E-R. Bisguier. Whom these two clashed many times. So this is kind of a historically significant game, as it is the first time he plays this very strong chess master. Bobby plays the King's Indian defense. Bobby is playing black. D4, knight F6, beautiful opening, just beautiful. C4, fantastic opening. G6, typical gonna feed kettle, yes. Knight C3, bishop G7. Now we're getting going here, and now he's building a very strong center with pawns. Fischer's not going to let him get away with it. With the D6 bump, he has the option of pushing either E5 or C5 to break up that pawn center, and now his opponent pushes one more. The general theme, the idea, if you're going to possess the center with pawns, then make sure that your pieces are backing up your pawns so that you don't just get clobbered. If you're going to build a pawn center, build it strongly with the pieces behind it. And this is what Bobby's opponent appears to be doing. So Bobby's going to castle. Not a problem for Bobby. He'll castle. Knight F3. Protecting this pawn. Protecting this pawn. The bishop's protecting this pawn. The bishop's protecting this pawn. So that's a pretty solid opening, even though in the opening there are a lot of pawn moves with Bobby's opponent. That is a very strong center. From there he can work, right? Bobby is not exactly neglecting the center development, as we will now see with his next move. He is going to attack that center. The last thing you want to do is let your opponent march such a large pawn center forward. You've got to start hitting it, and that's what Bobby does. So it makes sense why he pushes the C5. Again, developing, and he will take the D pawn, of course, and this is typical in the King's Indian, taking that D pawn. And now Bobby will bring up his knight to challenge the central knight. And instead of exchanging, his opponent goes back to knight C2. He's going to hang on to the knights. He's not going to exchange them just yet. So Bobby continues bringing out more power. And, of course, his opponent will castle. And now, rook to C8, he wants to get his rooks involved as well, which is usually and always a good theme, yes. And now bishop E3. So they're both just putting the pedal to the metal, getting developed. Fighting for the center. It's a very interesting opening at this point. And now Fischer goes knight A5. Not the best move. And his opponent is going to make sure that his queenside is really quite strong, that he has good pawn structure. He's got real good control of the majority of squares on the queenside because of those two knights that we can see, yes. So Bobby's opponent is really playing a solid opening at this point in the game, and now really, this is a bad move on Bobby's part. Now, of course, he's trying to keep the knight off of B5. That's the point of the a6 push. However, what this does is it weakens the b6 square. And that won't be good for Bobby. He's going to have an uphill struggle from here on. He advances the e5 pawn. Bobby will exchange the pawn. His opponent will exchange the pawn on e5. So things are changing a little bit, and now he comes to knight e8, and knight's going to come to d5. Central outpost on the knight, exquisitely strong. Very nice, yes. Those are always nice. Not permanent yet, but it's always nice. Bobby comes to rook c6, and his opponent brings forward his other knight to d4, and now it's pretty much overwhelming. White is really playing a very strong opening, so Bobby comes back down. He says, okay, you convinced me. I don't want to lose my rook. And then once again, his opponent goes back to knight c2, and Bobby says, well, I'm going to put my rook up here to c6, and now he comes to knight b4. Little bit different than last time. So Bobby brings his rook to here, hitting the center directly, and now bishop g4. And really, the even distribution of all of the power of white is really impressive. He has got Bobby on every angle, it seems like. It just seems like he is in control of all areas of the board. The wings, the center. It's a pretty good setup. How is Bobby going to? He's going to first start chipping away in the center, which is really important to grasp. Bobby always chipped away in the center. Yeah? That's the way to do it. There's that fatal weakness, the b6 square. Because of the way Bobby pushed his pawn, and Bisguier is enough savvy to absolutely dominate the queen side with that. Bobby's queen side is really in trouble. Bad news for the queen side. c8 to the queen, and now his other bishop takes the bishop at d7. He's caught him in a crossfire here that's really tough at the moment. And bishop then takes a5, and Bobby ends up being down a piece. Not good. Not good at all. e6, he's going to hit a target. Actually, he's going to hit a very good central target on the outpost. So that makes sense. But his opponent also hits a target here. So Bobby dodges out to rook h5. And now the knight comes chasing after the rook again. So Bobby's rook goes to f5, hopefully pinning the knight to the rook, and bishop to b4, hitting his other rook. So white is targeting various pieces, interestingly, of higher value. He's got the position that his lower value pieces can target Bobby's, and it's just making Bobby react instead of come up with some kind of a plan of either attack or defense. Bobby is reduced to simply reacting to everything his opponent throws at him, which is bad for Bobby. Hopefully he can pull this out. He's got to find a way to quit reacting so much two White's moves. Well, the only thing he can do is lose this exchange. He's down a piece, but he loses the exchange, and he comes up to take A1 with the bishop. The problem with this is it opens up his opponent's ability to really put together a very strong attack. That's just the way this particular game works. Queen takes the bishop, and now the king takes the bishop. So it's not like he's down an enormous amount of material, even though he's evened it up material-wise. The pawn structure is better for White. Bobby has a majority of pawns, but here's the problem with this particular situation is now he can be attacked. Queen H8 check. Well, Bobby has an escape square, and the rook takes over the file. Check. Yikes. So Bobby bounces to here, and knight will take d5 on again, a very nice central outpost. That's tough chess, man. That central outpost has been the theme of White's attack on Bobby the whole game, more or less, hasn't it? And queen comes up to c6. He does not want his queen in front of his king with a rook here, doing a surprise discovery on the queen, so he does get the queen off of the same aisle. And queen comes to f8. Now Bobby puts the queen to d7. He's trying to keep a tight lid, but the queen is in front of the king, and sure enough, the rook d1. So you can see the attack, can't you? It's pretty obvious from this point. Rook comes to f6, and now finally, queen takes e8 check. And that is where Bobby Fischer resigned. The note at the front of this game in the tournament record indicates that Bisguier only beat Bobby this time. From now on, this was the only win he had against Fischer in the next dozen games, which I'm hoping are in the tournament record because I want to see Bobby get his revenge. He is a 13-year-old boy here. He played magnificent, but you can truly see the power and the maturity that Bisguier has. We're going to have to see some seriously strong improvement by Fischer to be able to beat him for the next 12 games, the next 12 meetings through the years that they had. This is just brutal from here out. If the king takes the queen, then the knight takes the rook check and forks the king and queen, right? And if the queen takes the queen, then again the knight takes the rook, and he loses the queen because it's a discovered check on the king. So that is brutal. That is why Bobby resigned. So there's your chess lesson for the day. Happy Memorial Day. I will try to put together one more chess video today. There's another very important chess tournament game that Bobby played that essentially the historical significance of this game is that the next game I'm about to show you in the next video put Fischer on the chess map. The world woke up to Bobby Fischer after the next game I'm going to show you. So, be good, do well, have fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in the next Backyard Professor Chess video.